Hello, this is our class for Monday, 4/27. One of the last classes we have. This is basically the last section we're going to do. Is talking about linear regression. So in linear regression, you have information from two variables, and they are both quantitative. So for each subject, you know two numbers, like let's say their height and weight. And you could make a graph where one of the numbers is the x-coordinate and the other number is the y-coordinate for each subject, and you could plot all the points. So if there's some kind of association between the two variables, then that should show up as a pattern in the points. If there's no association, then the points would be just all over the place. Or maybe there would be like a bell curve, like a two-dimensional bell curve like shape, where like there was sort of more in the middle of the graph and then they sort of thinned out as you got to the edges. But there wouldn't be sort of like a pattern where the points were sort of like clustered in like a line or an arc or some kind of curve. Now, the more of a pattern that the dots follow, the stronger the association is. So like basically if the dots pretty much follow a pattern, it means that if you know one of the coordinates, you know one of the variables, then you can make a pretty good guess for the second variable by just looking at the pattern. So the idea of linear regression is that we are going to look for a pattern where things are in a line. So basically, like the value of one variable is kind of proportional to the value of the other variable in some sense. Now, not all two variables that have an association are going to have a linear association. Some of them might have some kind of like parabola type shape or something, but linear regression is sort of like the most basic type of association you would look for. And essentially, we can run a stat test on Minitab, which will plot the dots and try to find the line which comes closest to going through all the dots, and then it will generate a number which sort of like estimates how close the dots are to the line. So like how strong the linear pattern is for this particular set of variables. So for my first example, I want to look for a pattern between the exam scores. Let's go back to our exam score data, and we are going to basically say, is there a connection between student scores on different exams? So we know that from our previous days that exam 2 was a lot harder than exam 1, but maybe it's still the case that students who do better on exam 1 will also do better on exam 2, and students who did worse on exam 1 than average would also do worse than average on exam 2. So what would it look like if we plotted students' exam 1 score on the x-axis and their exam 2 score on the y-axis? Could we see a line? How much of a line would it look like? So let's use linear regression to look for a pattern, look for an association, I guess, association between exam 1 and exam 2 scores. All right, so that's what we're going to do, and that'll take a little while to talk through. So I think I'm going to put the Minitab half in a second video and pause while I type up all those words that I said at the beginning of this video.